Somebody talking at me.
CRN, Chuck Wilder here. Let me tell you about my guest, Kimberly Dvorak, award-winning national security and border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. And Kimberly is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She is a TV correspondent for CW6 News San Diego, as well as One American News Network. And her website is thekdreport.com. I'll be all right. How are you, Kimberly? How are you?
I'm fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
I am fair to partly cloudy today, and boy, I'll tell you, serious stuff going on.
Yeah.
We got, of course, the shooting, and then we've got the fires in California. I think we're going to talk about the fires first, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they both kind of dovetail together.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I said they dovetail together. Both those topics dovetail together.
Well, yeah, especially with the protesting against getting into the hospitals, right? And you know, earlier I had an update, and then I didn't finish the update on my newscast. But the good news, listener, is that both of these sheriff deputies are now expected to recover. So blah blah blah. There you go, little. You know, and it wasn't a little guy either. It looked so little. You know, I thought, boy, that's a little kid shooting, but they announced the cameras were distorted. But
watching that video it's. I mean, with cameras being everywhere now, and the fact that we don't necessarily have those kind of civil liberties any longer. Watching that was very chilling to see disoriented police officer or LA sheriff deputy rather get out of the vehicle, stumble around, take off his bulletproof vest. Obviously, he was shot in the head, so he, that there's no protection from that. And it just makes you wonder, why these protesters continue to dig themselves deeper into this quagmire that is actually, civil war-like behavior, where people, law enforcement, they were harming nobody. They were parked, and here comes, a male up behind them and shoots them both. I mean, it's anarchy. It's scary, and for people that don't, have any means of protecting themselves, this is scary. This changes behaviors, and people will not be going out in the public as much if this behavior continues.
Kimberly, with any war we've ever had, I mean, we've had, whenever you became a prisoner of war, you were supposed to be treated, decently, and a lot of nations didn't abide by that. But when you're fighting a war, there are basically no rules. They're the bad guys and you're the good guys. And it seems like when it comes to the police, and very often, and it seems to me like especially white old women, pushing a grocery basket or something, there's no rules. There's no rules. So it shows you, it tells me they don't really want to get together and solve something. This is, their chance to have their little war, and they love it. And they were probably 90% of them trained for it.
Yeah.
70%, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we've been watching the riots increase across the country, and I think this is a calculated measure by the left, thinking that complete chaos in the streets is going to be responsible for bringing President Trump down. I don't know how many Tea Party protesters were out and about shooting up cops, murdering people, beating up grandma, all of these things that we're seeing here over the last 9 months or so in this country. I don't remember Tea Partiers doing that. The Tea Partiers were on the right. I think it's safe to say that, I covered when they first started out, back in 2010. And, they always left the place cleaner than they found it when they had a rally. These are the people that were responsible for the Tea Party. They weren't out committing all of these crimes. So the left is thinking that, look, if this is in complete chaos and people are going to vote for Joe Biden because they're going to go back and restore law and order. So if that's the case, it's a great idea on their behalf, because they're not going to win on that. Because you're starting to see suburban moms make the change and say, you know what, this violence is out of control. These protesters are out of line. when people are at the hospital fighting for their lives, it doesn't even have to be the law enforcement. What about if you had a heart attack and you couldn't get to the hospital in time because these protesters were out in front chanting, we hope you die. I mean, this is not something that's a unifying message. So if this is where they're going to put all of their, their apples in this deal,
right,
then I think that the president wins fairly comfortably in less than 2 months' time. The other thing is that what they're hoping for as well is they want, the chaos, and this is kind of something that was just slowly starting to get, kind of reported on the weekend, that if there's no clear winner in the presidential election time when it comes time for the second term to begin, then Nancy Pelosi could actually be an interim president until they figure out who is the next president in this country, which is a very scary thought. And Miss Pelosi does not have very much likability whatsoever. And even within California at this point, they don't really have much likability for her. So these are issues that the Democrats running on, and you just have to question yourself, like, what are they thinking on this front? But, that's what they're doing. They're sticking with it.
And they're also doing that old thing, blame others for what you do. And here, you mentioned in your latest report, L.A.'s mayor, Garcetti, slamming Trump.
Yep.
Blaming him for the fires, blaming him for the shootings, and...
but still wants federal dollars. He still wants the president to give California federal money so they can pay for the mismanagement of his city. So, I mean, it's make up your mind. You hate him? Why do you want money from him if you don't like him and you don't think he's, out there, working hard on your behalf? Maybe the mayor should start working on their behalf, and maybe the mayor ought to highlight that, well, maybe these officers are put on extreme danger now and they're maybe not getting the training they need because LAPD actually did cut the budget in an attempt to kind of pacify these defund the police protesters. So are we going to start seeing the rewards of, slowly defunding the police? It's another thing to think about.
Yep, and I don't remember. I remember seeing it posted, but I don't remember which source it came from. But they were talking about that like 3 or 4 months ago. We'll go 4 months. That Nancy Pelosi had put out the word. Hey, don't worry about the peaceful protests we're having, because you're going to be refunded for all of this. Blah, blah, something to do with don't worry about the money that. And so here it is, New York asking for help, LA asking for help. She's right on it, they're probably going to end up getting it the way things go.
Yeah, well, they're asking for it, but again, Miss Pelosi and Chuck Schumer thwarted the White House's efforts this last week to pass a COVID bill, another bill that would extend the paycheck relief program to families who are middle to lower income levels in this country, and it was the Democrats that actually thwarted the attempt. So, where are the questions on the Sunday talk shows, which there were very few of, questions to Nancy Pelosi, to Chuck Schumer, and Chuck Schumer, they were talking about, oh, well, it was a joke that he didn't get, and he was trying to deliver a stand-up comedy act. Well, the stand-up comedy act, let's leave that to the comedians, because they're actually pretty good and pretty funny about it. And let's kind of focus, if you're Chuck Schumer, let's see if we can maybe work through this COVID situation and get these families that need this relief in their pockets. But he's out there going and trying to do stand-up comedy on the weekends. I hope there were less than 50 people in the room. They probably were. He scared them away. But in any event, this is the serious conversation that the left is trying to have right now, talking about stand-up comedy. They don't want to talk about what's going on because they are on very weak footing. And, the longer this goes on, it just, like I said, people are just kind of slowly, going back across the party line saying, this enough is enough. This stuff's got to stop.
I'm a little fuzzy on these protesters that were blocking the hospital. Were they doing this right after the officers were shot so that the ambulance couldn't get through? Was that it?
Yeah.
Or were they doing it afterwards?
No,
And
no,
I,
this
I
was,
know they were saying we hope they die,
yeah,
right?
yeah, this was done
Yeah.
right afterwards. And again, this is, I also want to stipulate this, but I mean, we know that there are a lot of protesters out there, and then the majority of them don't want police officers to die, but they have got to get this fringe element of their party under control, because this is costing lives. And again, when they block the entrances to where law enforcement has to put out Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever they're posting their stuff out there, please stay away from the entrances, and actually have to deploy more law enforcement to the scene to try to get these protesters to get back so the ambulances can get in. By this point, the officers are already inside, so the people now that they're hurting are like the person who had a heart attack. So it's just it's
Right.
lunacy. I don't understand it. I'm blonde, I get it, but I mean, I don't get that.
You know, you almost, and I'll say it, you almost wish for one of the protesters, relatives, right, being delivered to the hospital, and they don't know they're in the ambulance, and they're blocking it, just like you said. Oh, my mother died, but well, you were the one that was blocking, the entrance. It's they holler the craziest things. It's just
They do, and
I don't know. I never thought you'd see it like this.
Yeah, and I think too that there's been a widespread reporting that a lot of the protesters are white young people who are fairly well off. They don't have to worry about making rent. They don't have to worry about college tuition payments. Their parents are taking care of those things for them. So I mean, you'd think that when it came to things like blocking the hospital entrance, that they might go, you know what, that's just a bridge too far for us. Let's just back off. Let them go in and out and do their thing. We can still chant, "We hope you die" outside. We have a First Amendment right to do that. But we're gonna, even we will have a standard of not blocking the hospitals. And yet you're not seeing that. You're not seeing people out there saying, "Look, you guys are being morons. Get away from here. Stop. You're hurting the cause rather than helping the cause."
Yep. You had another story. Sorry I took so long to get to it, though. But
No, it's okay.
the borders.
Yeah.
We got a COVID zone that's infecting CBP agents there. And I guess Judicial Watch is reporting on a lot of this.
Yeah.
Say
Well,
that agents along the Mexican border at high risk,
Yeah.
COVID-19.
Yeah, well, again, Judicial Watch leading the way with getting FOIAs that a lot of our congressmen can't even get. So they did it again here. They were able to get the documentation, and we've learned that now that there have been 10 CBP agents that have died from COVID, and while working on the southern border. And when you look at, I've gone online, and when you go onto the State Department to see what the transit is going between the United States and Mexico, the president put a watch in April saying that unless you have business here, you cannot cross the border and come into the United States. Period. The end. However, what we've seen and what law enforcement has seen is an increase in young Mexicans. In July, the numbers in July were 78%. They came from Mexico, and they were young men. So they were coming across the border, a lot of them trafficking, migrants into this country, but they were running from law enforcement. They did not want to get caught, unlike, last year when we saw all the families just turn themselves into this. So now you're putting other agents, now you're putting Border Patrol agents' lives in jeopardy, because now they got to chase down these people who have entered the country. And you've got the CBP acting director, Mark Morgan. He came out and said, look, this is a dangerous job. A lot of these guys are running because they know they have COVID, and they refuse to turn themselves in and self-report. So now how many hundreds of people are going to be around these, people coming into the country? And you can see the exponential growth with COVID here. And it's coming at the hands of that southern border, again, not being secure enough. And now it's, claiming the lives of CBP agents who, for the most part, they don't sign up thinking that they're going to have to, discharge their firearm at the border. I mean, there's security around for that. So, these are people that are just checking IDs, seeing that the person's able to get in the border. I mean, a lot of these people crossing in San Luis in Arizona, they're waiting 6 hours to cross into this country. It's a dangerous situation down there, and they're seeing an uptick in violence as well.
Yeah, 6,000 miles of American land borders. And it's interesting, when I was reading your report, Kimberly, I was talking about where this nurse died at a facility, hospital, de San Luis, Rio, and then I saw Colorado, and I said, wait a minute, they went across the border and went to Colorado? But no, that's the name of that's the name of the hospital.
Sorry.
Right? St. Louis, Rio, Colorado.
I should have did the bracket, not the state.
The Colorado River.
Yeah. Exactly. We've known for there's been a lot of people that have died in Mexico from COVID. So a lot of them are also getting afraid, and they want to get into the United States where they can get better treatment here.
Right.
So.
And they always want to get in the United States because until further notice, we are still the #1 country in the world. No wonder you want to get here. We're going to continue more from Kimberly Dvorak, streaming live at Periscope and Facebook. Her website, thekdreport.com. Wilder with Kimberly Dvorak, thekdreport.com. In your report here, you're talking about the Commissioner Mark Morgan finally revealed that 10 agents have died in the line of duty after contracting COVID-19.
Yeah.
And every time I see a new report, or even any report now, on COVID-19, I go back to what the Center for Disease Control said about, they admitted that only 6% of all the 153,000 plus deaths actually died from COVID.
Yeah.
That leaves 94%, listeners, that died from other serious illnesses, but was fake reporting, you might call it.
Well, I don't know if that was necessarily fake reporting, but what I think happened is that when when Congress did the very first COVID package to get people their paychecks extended, and so they couldn't get kicked out of their homes and things of that nature, they put in there a caveat that medical facilities like hospitals or nursing homes that were treating COVID patients, they got extra dollars per patient. So this, 20%, this led to a lot of these facilities who are losing money because patients come in and you have to provide care to anybody that's in the United States, not just legal, but illegal as well. So they're losing money. So there's a lot of incentive for, the hospital administrators, let's put it this way, for them to kind of bump up those numbers so they could get some of that funding. So hopefully that's part of the issue as well. And of course, if that's the case, then there's a huge flaw in Congress and what they did when they sought to help Americans. They actually unintentionally put this out there that could lead to misreporting about the actual numbers. I suspect 10 years from now we'll see the real numbers.
Yeah, and and I've always been suspect of it, and I get a lot of flack because of it. But it's all of these rules that we're following, wearing the mask and everything else. If 94% was caused by the flu, they say, possibly, other overwhelming major things, you didn't have to wear the mask during the flu epidemic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I just think that, for the most part, people are trying to figure out how to get around this and, how best to manage in this time. And, you talk to younger people and these Gen Xers who are reportedly, they lean Trump's direction, and they also lean in the direction that this COVID situation will be solved the day after the election, because they suspect that this was something that the left had put forward as a reason to knock the economy and crush the economy. And for the most part, the Gen Xers and some of the younger millennials, the economy we saw under the Trump administration was the first economy that was booming that they saw ever in their lives, and then it was just ripped away from them. So they're quite. It's understandable.
And it wasn't just BLM either. It was all of you were benefiting from it. Hey, as we wrap things up, you also mentioned, that Judicial Watch this week said that even though Mexico is boiling with COVID-19, cross-border traffic is busier than ever. Yeah. And we're pretty sure they didn't hype the statistics in Mexico because they weren't shelling out extra money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, hey, fantastic report, Kimberly, and look forward to our next one.
Thank you.
All right. And look for this later. It'll be on Facebook and thekdreport.com. We're going to be right back.